Welcome to Skechcraft, the podcast for art, design, and process junkies. I'm Rob Duenas, art director for Game Fan Magazine and Artist Esquire. This is an unedited podcast, which means that there is some cursing from time to time, so please be aware. Thanks for listening, and here we go. And we're back. Okay, so, hey, here I am. Sketch Rants, episode 11, Tips and Tricks, round 1. So what the hell am I talking about? Well, I'm going to give you guys all a little update really quick, and I'm going to give you little tips and tricks and stuff that I come across, or people ask me questions in the forums, i.e. DeviantArt, or up on the Facebook page and whatnot. Sometimes I get a random email. So let's do roundup first. TucsonCon. So I just got back from TucsonCon this week. I was out there with Tom Hutchison, the publisher and creator of Big Dog Inc., to whom I provide cover work and graphic design work from time to time. So we went out to TucsonCon, and that was fun. Man, I drove out there on not much sleep, but it was good times. Tom came over. We made a 6-hour trip, went through a haboob. Apparently there's some kind of sandstorm. I don't know. They call it haboob or something. I don't know. So it was windy. So long story short, we get up to TucsonCon, and some things popped up. So first off, I had some exclusive prints, in case y'all didn't know. I put up on DeviantArt, and I sold through about a dozen of them. And then I went to TucsonCon and sold out the rest fairly quickly. So that went pretty well. Something to say about those exclusive prints. So I was noticing a lot of people do. I can't speak for the artists, first off. I can only speak for me. When I start to sort of give general advice to every artist, that's kind of pointless, and I get myself in trouble because artists always come back and go, Rob, you said that, it didn't work for me, you suck. And I have to agree with them. I don't like doing that. So, let me tell you what's working for me. I do computer and digital art as well as traditional art, especially with commissions and stuff, because it's faster, it's more fun. I enjoy working in mixed medium. I don't believe my mixed media is sort of print ready. All right, I'm doing that with quotation marks. So I save the computer and the digital stuff for that, because those sort of things right now keep me happily employed. But I do the mixed media for everything else. And this time I started to do watercolor prints. I did 3 exclusive bust shots of Joker, Batman, Harley Quinn, and it is a few random ones. And those sold out pretty quick. So big plus. I think also I didn't sell as much computer prints this time. Now that fluctuates. I'm not going to say that's an overall con rule, but I will say that at least for me, the contrast between the mixed media and my digital work sort of gives people a choice of which one they want to get, as opposed to saying whether they like my art at all and moving on. So that's been a nice growth. I'm going to continue to do that. I got a question from another artist that was near me at a table asking me, what I do at cons, how do I sort of, get people to come over and buy things and talk to them and stuff. And I wish I could sum all this up in a few minutes. But I would like to tell you sort of I have the Former Conventions podcast I did 1 or 2 ago. Go look that up, and there's a lot of advice in there. I might retread over that because I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know I covered a lot. So I want to talk to you about something specific. I call it con time, again, with the quotation marks. That's where, when I go to a convention, I see a lot of artists go and they sort of socialize. Hey, how you doing? Oh, how you doing? How you doing? Hey, what's up? And that's pretty cool. I like to socialize before a con and after. Not so much right when they close, but after we'll go get some drinks or get some dinner or something. That's where I like to socialize for a very limited time, about an hour before and an hour after. And then I go back to my room and I sleep. And I get up early, usually around 4:30 or 5 o'clock. That's con time. That's my game phase. When conventions for me are like going on and putting on like a show. You're not getting a fake me, but you're getting, like I tried to say, there was a Michael Jackson. Okay, it's probably not the best advice for some people, but there's a Michael Jackson, the person, and then there's like the Michael Jackson, the performer, right? Or there's the person, there's a performer. When I go to con, I'm on my best behavior. I'm having a good time. I have to be very talkative. I can't be a withdrawn or internal, sort of emotionally, hard to get at artist. I have to be very personal, personable, which, naturally I kind of am when I'm not in artist mode, because artists tend to have like multiple personalities. So me on the podcast, this is the kind of person you meet at a convention. When I'm at a convention, that's, this is who I am. Normally during the day, I'm like a quiet, kind of introspective kind of dude, But when I go to con, you can go to con, you have to be personal. You want these people to come over and say hi. And if you're sitting there with your arms crossed, all that basic body language, even when I was in college, one of the few things they managed to do kind of right was they would, they made you get up and do group speaking and public speaking. And I feel very comfortable in front of a group of like 3,000 people. Sounds strange. When I'm like with one other person having a conversation, I get nervous and I ramble on or I withdraw completely. So I would recommend that, if you're having trouble with people being approachable to you at conventions and you're an artist and you're sitting there, always draw. Always have something to draw. You got commissions, great. If you don't have commissions, you create commissions for yourself that you can put on eBay and sell. Always draw. If you're an artist sitting there not drawing, they won't come over because people just want to watch you draw. At the very least, they can watch that. Oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Oh, you just made that. Oh, wow. Yeah, I got some stuff over here. You can look through. It's free. Have a good, check it out. And then if they're sort of lingering on something, you can go, hey, I got those right there for this much or 2 for that. And they go, oh, yeah. And then you go, hey, man, just whatever, That's the sales ship. You have to learn to also like sell your stuff. You got to sell not just your stuff. You want to sort of sell you in some way. I try not to be very like money oriented at cons. I find very productive ways to get the cost down on my end, so I get a return and they get something that's worth buying. I don't do $60 prints. I don't do $80 prints. One, I'm not famous, so they're not going to be an aftermarket of like $300 markup and stuff. But also because I just feel people shouldn't have to go to a convention and spend $200. So I think for $20, someone should be able to walk away with some pretty high quality goods, and that $20 is going to be mine. That's what I want. I want to collect 20s. So one of the things I try to do is I, if I see a kid, I'll draw the kid something, no problem. If it's like, they're 6, 7, 8. If they're 14, I'll do something around there. If they're an artist, if someone comes up, I'll just talk to them. Hey, are you an artist? I always ask, are you an artist? No? Oh, I used to be. I'm like, that sort of stuff. And you make mistakes, and sometimes you'll veer into conversations that maybe you didn't want to have, but you got to learn from them. So I just want to say again, when you're at that table, it's game time. So if I don't talk to you, if you're like an artist behind the table, and you're like, oh, Rob, thought we'd like be chilling and hanging out at the con, and I don't talk to you too much, please don't take it personal. It's that I'm there to like conduct business. We can shoot shit on Facebook anytime, but at the convention, I gotta put on the show. So let's move on. Sketch prints, something else I did at this convention. I did sketch prints. That's where I took a lot of my little mini sketches and I actually blew them up at 11x17 and sold them for $5 on some boards with my own custom borders and stuff. And that did really well. People were asking me where I got the paper, what kind of paper I work on. For the most part, I use a lot of inexpensive paper. I use 120-pound cardstock. You can find that at any paper distributor. 120-pound cardstock. A lot of people ask me if I use the Bristol Blue Lines, and I'm like, well, they're $35 for like 12. So no. If I'm going to do an expensive commission, I'll use it because it's archival. But I mean, what we're talking about is like 20, 30 years over time. 120-pound cardstock sitting in someone, with some whatever, some $5. I mean, it's going to last 20 years. So I mean, you want your artwork to last forever, you maybe use archival paper. But if like you're like, hey, in 20 years, it's not gonna it's not going to matter that much. I mean, just keep it out the sunlight. I mean, I know, what's his face? Dave Dorman. He doesn't use archival stuff, but his stuff is held up pretty good. And he's even talked about it. He's like, well, the stuff's not going to last forever. I understand, but he's just trying to get the job done. And I sort of feel that, look, if you, especially, if you don't have big budgets to work with, you're a struggling artist like myself, then don't be spending $30 on 12 pieces of paper. For $22.50, I can get 125 sheets of 120-pound cardstock. It's pretty comparable, and it has a nice weight. I found that when people buy something, they like to feel like they got something. If it feels a certain way. I feel the same way with comic books. A lot of comic books are printed up on cheap paper, especially DC and Marvel comics, and it feels cheap as shit. So when I go to an indie comic like Tom and even IDW, they print on pretty good paper and nice paper stock. It feels nice. It feels heavy. So I got 2 Q&As really quick. One from the convention. Mike DeBuffalo, big artist over there at Zenoscope, right? Pretty cool artist. He just did some Lady Death covers over at Brian Pulido. We were talking about coloring your own artwork as a penciler. And he was asking me, he's like, oh man, dude, your colors are great. And I'm like, oh man, dude, fucking, your art's dope. And I said, I sort of felt that, the artists always have some sort of like a little bit of like envy of another artist on some level. And he was like, oh, I wish I can color. And I'm like, well, I wish I had your colorists coloring my shit, because I colored because, it was a hard time finding people who would color my stuff. And then when I did, I had to pay for it out of my own pocket. So I couldn't afford to pay like Diego $60 a page every time I did something. And he said, even though, he has some really great colors, at times they make choices and decisions with the colors that sort of, adversely affect the pencil art or go out the way. But, as a penciler, sometimes you put a lot of detail in something and leave open space for color. And sometimes the colors, because they have no idea about that sort of stuff, usually they'll, fill in and use a dark color in all the detail and use a light color on the open spot, thus removing all the effort that you put in your pencils. So he was asking me, what I thought about that. And I said, well, my opinion, Mike, is if you're not a big time like computer colorist, right? And I wouldn't try and go and create more work for yourself because, again, you're making good money to be a penciler, is create a color guide. If you are unfamiliar with what a color guide is, back before like one person started coloring comics, you used to have groups of groups of people on comics, and they would have a colorist and color separators. These are cats I used to hang with at like San Diego Con when Image was still new, and even prior to Image, like Steve Oliff, All the Optics, Ruben Rude, Joe Chiodo. And I used to hit these guys up because their coloring, especially Steve Oliff, that was the first time I ever saw the Akira stuff, and then I met the guy that did Batman Digital Justice. That was cool. That was all digital comics, a little bit different. But Akira and then Legends of the Dark Knight was when I first, coloring really popped out to me in comics. And it was Steve Oliff doing the digital colors, but he showed me that, he was creating color guides by hand. So he would take the inked artwork, right, print it up onto laser paper or Bristol or whatever with his home printer or a copy machine or whatever, which now we can do at home printers because it's super cheap. And, he used markers and watercolor and just sort of color it in. So I was telling Mike, you can just take these Copics you bought, the tonal ones, right, just the tonal ones, and you can print out your stuff and do a tonal guide, right, in marker, and then scan that back in and then just quickly, in Photoshop, throw in some basic color and give them a guide, That way you have a physical copy. Or you can go the full bore, and once you do the tonals, add marker color if you already know what you're going to do. But at least with the digital stuff, you can save yourself some mistakes. Add a little whiteout and stuff. But I said that way, you can at least sell the color guide too, and you wouldn't have, you can mark that up. I mean, you go full paint on that thing, you throw watercolor, and you throw a little bit of acrylic, a little bit of opaque, a little bit of marker, all that stuff. I would recommend going tonal first with the Copics and then building up on top of it. That's how I do a lot of my paintings, my goofy little paintings. But I would recommend that. And hopefully the colors won't be adverse to that sort of thing, More often than not, they aren't. I mean, they get a little, sometimes, especially in the indies, maybe sometimes they're a little lost in order to start. So I got in the habit of always developing a guide. Now, some colorists can throw you a fit and be like, oh, you're the penciler, I'm the colorist, that's your job, this is my job. And to that end, I say, look, I'm the fucking taking the knocks, I think at the end of the day, I should have some, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Because here's the thing. If I do the greatest pencils in the world and you fuck up the colors, people are going to say my art sucks. Okay? But if I do great pencils and you hook up really awesome colors, they'll ask me, who's your colorist? I mean, it's a strange little thing, but I mean, this happens over and over again. And I've asked other pencilers about this, and they go, oh, that's so true. It's so true. So you can at least say, look, for the sake of having, us continue teamwork and stuff, here's my guide, here's what I think we should do, and then see how that works for you, At least this way you can sort of lean them in a certain way and allow them to still be creative and whatnot. If you want to pursue that. Otherwise, just move on. So, and with that, let's get to our final question. I did a sketch rant called Good Enough, and I talked about deadlines. And Hollow Gazers, Deviant, he asked me, he said, you mentioned basically that you don't mind stepping over deadlines if you can make that you're ultimately judged by the art you created, but won't future employers also judge you by timeliness? He goes on to say that he remembers Mike Diodell Jr. talking about this once and said that meeting deadlines is one of the most important things in the industry. He's like, I always assume there's a difference between turning things in late and turning them in too late. I'm wondering how tight is that line between keeping deadlines and not keeping them for the sake of higher quality. So I say, hey, good point. I'll just put it on another sketch rant and answer this question. So first I want to answer this with, I'm not telling you people to shirk deadlines, okay? Don't shirk deadlines, all right? What I was trying to how do I say this? I'm kind of in the middle of I'm running like almost a month late on a piece, so it's kind of ironic that I'm on something. So I'm gonna answer that question right now, and then I'm gonna buffer it with where my life is right now, okay? In case any current employers are listening and want to know what the fuck's going on. So, first off, do not shirk deadlines. Second of all, try to find out what your real deadline is. There's the deadline they would like to have, and then there's the deadline that they can deal with, that they can live with. And do not run it late because you didn't do your shit and you were shirking and fucking playing Facebook and Call of Duty and whatever. If you have a really complex idea, okay, and it's just going to be hard to do and it might run you, just let them know ahead of time. Man, I'm going to do this crazy thing, but it might run me. I'm not planning on that, but if it does, what's my drop dead? I have to have it. And whatever that is, your drop dead should be 24 hours before that. Okay? That is the real freelance answer. Okay? Now, if everything goes horribly wrong in your life, and you end up in the worst economy since the Great Depression, and everywhere you turn, your employers are either going belly up or not paying you for 90 days, and all your freelance situations are drying up, and you're basically living off, non-fat Greek yogurt and black coffee you're buying with commission money because you budgeted for it, then welcome to Rob's life. So the situation I'm in right now is I sort of quit my job in the beginning of October, and I took a bunch of job interviews. Luckily, the universe sort of replied back to me with opportunities. However, those opportunities weren't quite what I thought they were going to be, nor what they made them out to be. Like all things, there's what people sell you and there's the reality of it. And so I was in this weird position of what the hell to do, and I'm not in a position to move to another state, unfortunately, for a few reasons. So then I had another conversation with GameFan, and we sort of made amends, at least for this issue and the next one, to see where we can take it. Because there's a serious advertisement issue in the industry. I'm not going to get into that right now, but so then I was like, okay, I'll come back. And then the sheer weight of having to make another magazine sort of sullied over me, and then I got into a funk, and then I owed people money, not money, but other work, and so I've been chasing deadlines and then TucsonCon, so it's been a little bit of a clusterfuck, to say the least. October's my birthday month is never kind to me. It's always the worst month of my life. I never look forward to October, and it just seems that the universe, since the day I was born, right, sort of created all my conflict. I mean, that's when Play went under. That's when I've ever lost or moved a job has been in October. It's just, for some reason, been that way. So I think where I was coming from in that podcast was that I was running behind on stuff, and I was sort of trying to, justify that with, well, look at fucking this shit. And that's true. However, like I have to admit, like right now it's pretty fucking ridiculous I don't have some shit done. And I sort of feel that there's some other reasons for that too. You have to also be careful what you sign up to do. That's the lesson I'm learning the hard way. Last bit of advice, folks, is if someone says, hey, you know, we're going to give you this opportunity and you get to do all this design work and you get to lay out all this stuff, it's going to be fun. And you go, damn, that would be fun. And then when you go to do it, you realize how much hard work it is. You're probably best to just call them up and say, look, this is more than I bargained for, you know. Chances are, though, they're going to be like, so fucking what? You said you'd do it, get it done. I mean, at some point you're like, man, can I pay you to not do it? And then you have to just sort of like get around, like, you know, fuck it, whatever. Not everything can be a winner and move on. And that's the hardest part about being an artist is, you know, we want, generally, you know, when you really care about your art, you want everything to be perfect. And the realities of commercial art is not everything really can be. And more often than not, for some reason, when you just kind of do something and you don't think about it, and it's a sincere place that you're doing it from, you tend to make your best work, as opposed to when you're just doing whatever because you want to get shit done. Then you produce like generic shit work. And then there's a third option where you care about everything and you try to perfect everything, and then nothing gets done on time and you don't get paid on time and you hate life because you never get to see anybody. Yeah, that's the spot none of us should ever be in. And I find myself in that spot a lot because I create my own trouble like every other artist does. But these podcasts are also for me, you know. The inner conscious, the inner Jiminy Cricket comes out and says, Rob, what the fuck are you doing, you know, on these things. So that's my advice on all of that. All right, folks, I'm going to head out of here. I got 2 more to record. Talk to you soon. Bye.